me too, bro.
The experience.
I was talking. So you hit me up after. Did you watch that one, or did you actually like? Because you hit me up after I posted the last episode. Mm-hmm. Did you just see the stuff and you're like, dude, I'd love to be on?
Yeah, I saw. Who was it? Sam Loving.
Yep, Sam Loving, Carter Dynam.
He was like, he was asking, or he was like, I was thinking about this podcast today, and I was like, yo, that would be fire to be on. And then he was like, yo, we can get E on here too. I was like, bet. You know what I'm saying? So
Well, I was sitting here because you hit me up, and I'm like, I feel like Elijah might be interesting to have on too. And then I was talking to Emily, and she was like, you should have Elijah on too. And Grace confirmed it too. So I'm like, all right, sick.
Yeah, when you approached me, I was like, we are on a podcast and we drink root beer. Like, why would you not want to?
Facts.
You know?
Okay, I am really curious. Okay, well, while we're talking about the root beer, we're drinking Hank's today. I know nothing about this other than it looks like a cool label. It reminds me of the Guinness label. So
It's pretty good.
about it.
I see. I'm getting a little bit of cough drop taste, so maybe I should take that out first before.
That's probably a good idea. Yeah, it's not too harsh. There's some very sweet root beers out there, but this one is like it's not heavy. But Kenton, sorry, not Kenton. Hold on, I might cut this. Do I call you Kenton or do I call you KJ? Because I knew you as KJ, and then once Emily and I started dating, I just heard like, oh, he wants to be called Kenton now. I'm like, okay, which one is it?
Honestly, man, our church is used to KJ. Mm-hmm. So like, I'm not one of those who are like, if you don't call me Kenton, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
people, first of all, people who are like that, you're lame. But
Either one, but you prefer Kenton?
yeah, I would like to be called Kenton.
If you notice, I'm trying to do that, because I was back in the old days, KJ.
Yeah,
the old days. How long have you guys? How far do you guys go back?
Like 2 years.
Yeah, only
2 years.
Only 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
My boy was in Brazil.
And
And then moved up here.
Wait, you were in Brazil, Elijah?
Yeah.
Hold on. This just got way more interesting. Okay. Why were you in Brazil and for how long?
Okay, so long story. So my wife and I, we went to school at Word of Life Bible Institute in upstate New York.
Okay.
And they do a lot of different things. They do like camps. You ever heard of like Olympians? It's like
I don't know that I have.
Awana.
Yeah, Awana. Yeah.
It's like Word of Life's version of Awana.
Okay.
Olympians.
Okay, gotcha.
And then they like did other events like it used to be called Super Bowl. Now it's called Reverb, where they it was like an all-nighter for like high school students. Like they did a like basketball game or hockey game, and like then the gospel would be presented, and then they would take them to like different locations like bowling or like a full-on gym with inflatables, and that was like one of the outreach events. So like Word of Life does a bunch of stuff. Yeah, my wife Liz and I we went to the Bible Institute.
Yeah.
2 years, and then she came back here because she's from here, from Elkhart. And then I switched over to the international ministries. So I was like under this title of like cross-cultural internship.
Gotcha.
So CCI, we like to paraphrase everything. And I chose my location as Brazil. And
Brazil?
Yeah, because my best friend was there. And he like...
How did you make a best friend in Brazil?
Well... So we went to first year together.
Okay.
My story's long. We went to first year together, and then I guess you could say second year at Word of Life, I switched over to like staff, sort of, where I was like on a traveling band, kind of like Life Action.
Yeah.
And he finished his second year while I was doing the traveling band. Then I went back and did my official second year at the Bible Institute.
Right.
And that's when my wife was there.
Okay.
So we did second year together. She did it like her first year was when I was on the band. So my best friend, we became best friends during first year.
Gotcha.
And then during my second year, like there's one class in the Bible Institute where it's, I'm forgetting the name of it. Basically you go for like a week to a different country. It's missions reality.
Okay.
You're realizing missions.
Okay. Gotcha.
So he was already over there doing CCI, cross-cultural internship.
Yeah.
And on our way back, flying back to the States, we stopped in the city that he was in at the time. Let's just say he was super depressed at the time.
And he was actively on like the missions trip thing.
Well, he was like there because the cross-cultural internship was like 2 years.
Jeez.
So like I was only staying for a week because it was like a class.
Yeah.
But he like went beyond the institute and was like an intern with the international ministries of the Word of Life.
Dang. So he was committed.
Right. And so like when I was about to fly back, like, you know, I saw him, so it was a good time. And then he was like super lonely because there's like not a lot of guys who do that program.
Yeah.
There's a lot of women, you know, it's just an any ministry thing. But
one would think that that'd be good for a single dude.
Well, he was dating at the time.
Okay.
So it was good in that way. But like, yeah. So we were saying our goodbyes and he just like hugs me and he just whispers in my ear. He just is saying over and over and over again, like, please come, please come, please come. And I was like, one thing you should know about me is like, I'm like a German Shepherd or a Golden Retriever. I'm super loyal.
Yeah.
So like I follow through. So I said, I'll come, which, you know, was not like, did not consult the Lord or anything like that beforehand. But I was like, all right, I'm doing it because I said I'll come.
Yeah.
I'll follow through what I said.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, the Lord worked through it. But I went there and, you know, I had to do the whole support raising process. And then in January, I went there and he had actually come back to marry his now wife. And they were in the process of switching over passports. So he wasn't even there. And I was like, you just sent me to this country. Like, and you're not even here. And I was dating, you know, she was my girlfriend at the time. I'm like so far away from her. And it's like, I'm so alone. You just literally did to me what you were feeling.
So wait, he left Brazil.
He left Brazil to go marry his wife.
But he was going to come back.
Yes.
Okay.
But then, COVID happened.
Ooh.
Yeah. And so I was there. I was in that, like, the spot I was in was Atibaia, Brazil. And that was like kind of the hub for, because there's a few different locations in Brazil itself for Word of Life. And I was in that spot, supposed to be there for like 2 or 3 months to like learn the language, learn the culture. Mm-hmm. And then I was going to southern Brazil where he was originally because we were going to work together.
Yeah.
Well, COVID happens and that 2 to 3 months turns into 8 months.
So you were stuck in Brazil during COVID.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And your wife is down there. Wait, you were dating at the time, you weren't married yet.
Right.
So were you guys long distance?
We were long distance.
Oh my gosh, that's a nightmare. That is a nightmare.
Hold on. When it comes to loyalty,
dude, for real.
Yo, my man's E, like, I don't think there's anybody who's I've seen that's more loyal to him.
What got you like long distance? I'm side tangenting here, but like long distance for like 8 months?
Dude, well, so I was support raising as well. I mean, like, so that time in Brazil, like, was long distance, but like even after we left the Bible Institute, we were doing long distance because I'm originally from New Hampshire.
Right. Okay.
And she's from here. So we like visited. So it was like a full on year of just like long distance. But like,
what in the world kept you in that? For like, I mean, I'm not saying it's ridiculous. I'm just saying, like, hats off. That's very commendable. Like, what's the key for the long distance couples out there? What's the key that kept you in it?
I pretty early on, like, I approached my relationship with my wife now, like, in a different way. Like, you know, because I had relationships previous.
Right.
But in hindsight, I didn't think they were, like, anything serious. And so I approached hers differently, where it was like, okay, I'm in it for, like, the long haul. The only way, like, we're out of this is if you say so. So I was like all in.
Dang.
Put that foot down.
Yeah.
Hey, all you fellas.
Yeah. Put the foot down.
Put the foot down.
Yeah. And so like I did all the, I tell this to the young adults when we're hanging out, like I did all the groundwork beforehand. Like we were friends beforehand. We knew each other all beforehand. So like I knew her personality and everything like that and just who she was. And I said like, this is someone I could marry. And then once we started dating, it was like, all right, if I'm gonna date her, like this is, I'm in. This is gonna be who I marry. And so like that whole dating process was like a switch of like, okay, now I'm just following through with what I said in the aspect of like, even like love's a choice. Like I choose to love. So like every day I'm going to choose to love her. And so it was just following through with that. Like, you get doubts, obviously, but like I was like just combating the doubts and like saying, no, like this is what I said. This is what I'm going to follow through. And so it's a choice, and it helped, and it grew our relationship a lot, the long distance, because you have to like grow it in different ways.
Yeah.
Because you're not like physically there, so communication is key. Like
100%.
like
I don't have much long distance experience, but from what I have, that is key.
It's
that is
like
key.
You don't even know what communication is until like you're in it. And then you still are like, I don't know what this is. So like, yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. So, okay, you're back in Brazil.
Yeah.
You're long distance. COVID happens.
Yeah. And then,
How long do you stay after COVID?
yeah, I was there for 8 months. And then, so, I mean, this is where, like I said, communication's key. So right around that 8-month mark, like,
Don't tell me you proposed
no,
over Zoom.
No. I have more class.
You used Google Hangouts
Yeah.
with the
you know
blurred
what I'm saying.
background.
Yep.
I would have cooked you if you did that. I would have been like,
Yeah.
"What? You don't want to over camera?"
Dude, I got a ring pop in too, so laying it on heavy. No, but around like the communication's key. So, she was struggling. I was struggling spiritually just because it was like it's difficult being in a country where you're like, don't speak the language. You don't have like community, like anything like that. And for her, it was like, I'm not where she is. And so it's like, she's like building her own community. So KJ was there. Like KJ and I had met once because I'd visited before. But like, didn't really, did we? Were you there that first time?
I honestly don't even remember. No, the first time I met you was when you came home.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Because I was like, I remember when they were going through their little thing.
Yeah.
And you knew her wife at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we were working together over the summer.
Yeah.
And I was like, dang, she really stressing over this dude. You know?
Right.
I didn't know what biblical love was like. Until
this was like BC, before conviction, like before you were saved.
Yeah.
Dang.
So
We'll get to that later.
yeah.
For sure.
But around that 8-month mark, she thought I was like, I wanted to be like full-time mission. And I was like, oh, like, no, like, I was just here because, I wanted to support my friend, be loyal to him. And then like he wasn't there. So like my mindset changed where I was like, okay, I'm there for her. And I'm like, the little stipend that I'm getting, I'm saving towards that ring. Like that, like, that's not even 200 bi-weekly.
Once again, a commitment, like ministry money for a ring. That's a struggle on its own.
And so she calls me like around that 8th-month mark, and she wants to break things off. Cause
dude,
yeah. So KJ was there. So, and then, ooh, that was a God moment. And like the communication. So we both like realized like, okay, like, for me at least, it was, I decided, if I didn't know for like 3 days if we were going to be like, make it or not.
that's rough.
So I was like weeping for those 3 days and, didn't eat, didn't really sleep. And it was the same for her. So we were like, but after that 3 days, it was like, okay, like, she had decided beforehand, like, if I say yes to continuing this relationship, the way I'm going to say yes is that he has to come back by this certain point from Brazil. And on my own, like in those 3 days, I was like thinking through, and I was like, I was here for her. And so if we're not in the relationship anymore, there's no purpose for me to continue being here. Just because I wasn't there for the right reasons in the first place.
Right.
And so like either way I was going to return. But if we were still in the relationship, I was returning because right now she needed me where she was. And so like when we came back at that third day and we talked about it, and I said, like, we said we'd continue, and then I was like, yeah, I need to go where you are. So, and she said the same thing. And so that next month was just like a huge godsend of like just figuring out plans, because it worked out, just everything lined up where I could come to Indiana, because I was leaving the security blanket of my family, of Word of Life, just everything, and I just going out on a limb to come here. And it worked out where Lifeline, where KJ and I worked, and where KJ still works, and where my wife was working at the time, the guy who runs it was an alumni at Word of Life and has been trying to like build that connection with the organization for the longest time.
That's sick. So you had a connection there.
Yeah. So I was like kind of that missing link of like, okay, like I can intern for Word of Life at Lifeline, and like still do what I'm doing, and not like totally go out on a limb and have to find housing and a job. Like that was here for me when I came, which was like a huge answer to prayer. So, and yeah, that was like 2 years ago.
Dang.
Was it 2 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
That's huge.
I think it was in September
Yeah,
2 years ago.
yeah. So,
That's awesome. That's a great. I feel like you've because you're how old?
25.
You're 25.
Yeah.
That's that's something not most 25-year-olds have been through. I feel
Yeah,
like
it
that's huge.
Yeah, it was it was a really humbling process, and it was, like I said, it removed a lot of security blankets, because
Yeah.
I'm from New Hampshire. I don't know anything about Indiana, like all the security of family, just how all that different stuff was like. Yeah.
I like how it seems like you were more insecure about moving to Indiana than you were about moving to Brazil. Literally another country.
But now that I'm here, I'm like, man, like surprising, like, because you don't think Indiana has anything to offer. Like, I just thought like, oh, it's another state. Like, I'm not in New Hampshire thinking, oh, Indiana. Like, I think New York, I think California. Like,
Yeah.
it's just one of those ones you pass over. But I'm here now. I'm like, oh, there's like quite a bit to do, more than New Hampshire.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, it's gorgeous in New Hampshire. I'll give it that. Like mountains and the rivers, and it's just like you can do a lot of stuff outside, but there's a lot more food options here, and there's just, I don't know, more stuff to do.
Wow.
Honestly,
It's the first time I've heard somebody say that about Indiana, but I mean, that makes me feel better about where I live. So thank you, Elijah.
anytime.
That's awesome. That's like encouraging too, especially because that whole kind of trial period, it sounds like came from, well, it didn't come from, but it was set up by that kind of like impulse decision to go to Brazil. And like you said, you didn't like consult God about it or at all. You just kind of went.
Right.
And it's really encouraging though, that even though you did something like that, that was, you said for the wrong reasons. I can't speak to that or not, but even though you did something for the wrong reasons, it worked out.
Right.
In a
Like,
really good way.
God's like sovereignty and everything, like whatever we choose to do, like he still is sovereignly working through all of it. And so
Hearing stories like that takes away some of that risk or that pressure that like you have to make every decision, right?
right. Yeah.
It's big. Kenton, do you want another root beer? You down that really fast.
A root beer is like my favorite drink.
Oh my gosh.
That is true.
Hold on.
So,
This is like meant to be.
you know what's for all of you Word of Life interns that are watching this, that work
Oh,
at
they're
Lifeline.
watching tonight.
If you're watching, if you're gonna watch this, my boy E right here walked so you could run. I just want to let y'all know that. All right, my boy right here walked so y'all could run. All right, let's not get that twisted. All right, he's very humble. You feel me? Which I love, and he don't give himself enough props. So I do the propping up for him. You know what I'm saying?
You're a good hype man.
Which
kid.
I'm like that
Yeah.
with anybody.
That's true.
But yeah.
But
Okay, so hold on. This has already been far more serious than most episodes of Back to the Roots. But that's great. When I threw out the podcast to you, Elijah, you're like, you had me at root beer. And then Kenton, you like just downed your first bottle in like 3 minutes.
Sorry.
Is there... It's fine. Don't apologize. It's great. But like, that's the reason. So when I started this podcast, I'm like, oh yeah, we could do the thing. Like we could drink a different bottle of root beer every time. And it was because
I
like
love that.
root beer was my first pop that I liked. Like it was the first one my parents gave me. They're like, here, you'll probably like this. I'm like, I do like this. And then it blossomed into everything else. But like, it's your favorite? Like, how far does that go back?
Bro, since I was like probably a kid. Do you remember the A&W restaurant?
Oh yeah. Yep.
So I think that was the first time I ever had root beer. And I was like, yo, this joint is fire. So like ever since then, like the thing about pop is like, okay, yes, I like pop. But if somebody was like, hey, do you want a Coke? Like, that's an easy no. Or if somebody was like, do you want a Pepsi? It's an easy no. But root beer, bro?
Dude.
I just can't pass it up.
You don't hear that often. Root beer, I feel like, is pretty polarizing.
Bro, root beer is slept on. Like people, I've heard people say root beer is trash. I look at them like, do you like sweet potato pie? Like,
wait, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Is sweet potato pie good or bad?
No, sweet potato pie is great. It's the pumpkin pie that's.
Yeah,
I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan
take.
of pumpkin pie. Sorry for all you.
No, I'm not.
Pumpkin lovers.
I'm not really into pumpkin pie either. Mostly because I was like okay with it, and then I went to a movie when I was like, it was like 4 years ago. And before we went, we got pumpkin pie blizzards from Dairy Queen.
Oh,
and
That sounds so disgusting.
yeah.
I don't remember it being great or not, but I ate it, and then I had this horrible migraine during the movie. And by the time I got back, I was like, curled up and like was fighting this migraine, kind of sick to my stomach. So that whole thing happened where it's like, you have food and then you get sick and you never want to touch it again. So I couldn't touch pumpkin pie for like 3 years.
Well, if you just think, everybody that's watching this or listening, all right, think about a pumpkin, right? You open it up, all right, and it's like slimy. You gotta.
It's one of the nastiest insides to any kind of plant ever.
Now think about sweet potatoes or yams, how we like to call it back in KC.
KC?
Yeah, Kansas City.
Okay, got you.
Like
I'm northern, forgive me.
that's cool. You'd be like, yo, these joints looking mad fire. They don't just look. They don't look disgusting. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's what I equate to of like, yo, I'm not about to scoop this stuff out and make a pie out of this. It's just weird to me. But
And then you got the people too. Shout out to Josh Twitty because him and his family did a pumpkin carving thing a couple Sundays ago, and then they come back and he's got all the seeds. And he just puts a bunch of seasonings on them and throws them into the oven.
And then you eat them?
Yeah, I mean that's not bad.
you do that?
Well, for me, like I tried it. They didn't dry super well. I threw cinnamon on them because apparently like pumpkin with like the cinnamon sugar.
That could work in theory.
Like, yeah. So some of them were, they were okay. It wasn't amazing, but
Yeah, pumpkins are nasty for sure.
Sorry to all you pumpkin lovers. We just not rocking like that.
I don't know how we got to pumpkins from root beer, but oh yeah, I remember the jump. That's fine. Okay, so you guys are both like, you guys are both worship leaders. So you're both obviously into music.
yeah.
And I don't know either of you guys super well yet, but I'm like, okay, if nothing else, we can talk about music because that's something that everybody kind of shares in common. You guys are both good at it.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
So like, how long have you guys both been doing music for?
Now I have to like calculate in my head. Well, I got my first guitar when I was like, I don't know, 6, but it It was a beginner one.
Did you learn on guitar first? Was that your first instrument?
Yeah, that's my only instrument.
That's fine. That's fine.
Like, I'm not skilled enough.
Well, like most kids like me, like we were forced to do piano lessons for like,
honestly, I should have done piano. Like in hindsight, like, wasted opportunity.
did you like guitar though? Did you like it as soon as you started?
Well, when I was 6, it was like one of those cheap kind of beginner guitars, and I was 6, so it was. Every once in a while, like as I was growing up, I'd pick it up and like try to start and then just stop. And so it wasn't till my sophomore year in high school when I like actually picked it up and was like trying to intentionally really learn it. And it was because I went to a Christian school, and so we had like in electives, but like it was a worship team kind of like. So my friend and I, we weren't taking it seriously. We were goofing off. So we like grabbed our electrics and we would just like learn classic rock solo,
That's awesome.
and we would just play that in the back. Never played for any worship team or anything like that. We just helped with cables because like the guy who was running the worship team and like scheduled it, he was like, yeah, these 2 goofballs are not taking it seriously at all. They're not getting on that stage. And, I support that decision. But yeah, from there, I just kind of picked it up. And then like, I got my like first acoustic because I was like, man, this electric is so quiet. Like
you switched from electric to acoustic.
Well, because I didn't really know how to play the electric super well. I was, and like, I didn't have a good amp.
That's important.
So I was just like, ooh, this sounds louder and I can like learn it. So yeah, from that point on, I just kind of started to pick it up. And then I didn't start singing till like maybe junior or senior year in high school. So that was maybe like when I started really like getting into worship leading and music in that capacity was like 8 years ago. Yeah. So.
That's a long time. I would say, so I started, so in terms of like singing for real,
Yeah.
that's all like this year.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So
You went like straight into it then. Cause like you were on stage like for the first time. Like
KJ doesn't do anything shy. Like he comes out of the gate
That's
just
true.
charging.
that's not true.
That's my boy over here,
No, that's not true. Some stuff I am shy about. But so when I was 2 years old, my mom has a video of me, the like little toy drum sets.
yeah.
So she's playing the piano and I'm like staying on beat the whole time.
And you're how old?
2 years
You're
old. So it's like
a gift right away.
Literally it's a God-given natural thing. The first time I ever played drums in front of people, I was 5.
What was that? What was that for?
For my church back in Kansas City. So in terms of like drumming, I've been doing that for like 20 years because I'm 23, so 21 years. But in terms of like singing and stuff like that has only been this year.
Wow.
Which is like everything that has happened since I moved here, bro. Like I couldn't even explain. It's literally not a thing like I would plan. Like it's definitely like a God thing.
Huh.
So the way I got into worship leading was that so last year in August I sang one time. Nobody even knows this, so please don't go look it up because it was horrible. But anyway, I sang one time, right? And then I was in a really low time and I went home and I came back and I said, all right, Lord, like what are some gifts I'm not using that I can use, right? And then I go to a trip to Texas with Gospel City. And like the whole time we're there, Micah's like, yo, we gotta get you worship leading. Like, no joke. it was weird because I'm like, why are you saying this right now? Like, why are you saying this?
And you've only played drums up till this point.
Yeah, I've only played drums. Like,
Yeah.
you know.
Has he heard you sing?
Yeah, he's heard me sing, but
Like at that time, he's heard you sing.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it was like, to me, whenever he would ask me before, but it was just, I was always just like, no. Like, I'm not getting in front of this church. I was like, I'm going to sound horrible. No. So we come back. So we're in Texas, and Sammy was like, yo, we need somebody for Sunday. And Michael was like, KJ can do it. I said,
So this is the week of.
yeah, this is the week of. So I was like, all right, all right. So put me up there. And that's so the crazy thing about this whole thing is that we come back Saturday, I think, and our flight was like delayed or something. It was something to where,
I think I remember this Sunday because I think I was on camera.
yeah, we didn't get back till like 2 a.m. Right?
That's the way the Gospel City worship team rolls, dude.
Bro,
They go full send, one
Bro,
thing to the next.
Yeah.
because, well, we was at the airport for like an hour waiting on our bags. We was the last flight, so
Yeah.
it was whatever. So we get back like 2 a.m. I drive home, which is a 30-minute drive from me. I wake up 3 hours later, shower, whatever, and I'm so nervous, bro. Like, literally nervous. And we get there, and like before we go out, I'm pacing back and forth, like on the side of the stage, because
Yeah.
I'm just so scared. And I was like, all right, Lord, just like, come on, just help, like, let me take this off or something, like, just flow or something. And I just went out there, and the Lord did his thing. And Michael, Trent texted me, he was like, KJ, whoa. Like, that was, and that's when I was like, yo, this was actually pretty fire. So, like, ever since then, I've, like, dived head deep into the worship leading thing.
That's sick.
Now, all to say, like, we were roommates, and like that was the first time he sang in front of people, like publicly.
But you
But this man sings like constantly.
That does
Like
not surprise me.
That's true.
he is in the shower, he will blast his music, and he will be belting like it. Like
He's not lying.
I lived above, and it was just like I was bopping to his music. You know, it was like gospel.
I've listened to the stuff you
Constantly.
told me. Who's the Israel? What's his name?
Israel Halton?
Yeah.
Yep. Well, I was listening through some of his stuff today, and I pulled up. Shoot! I pulled up the one, and it was the same song from that video I sent you on Instagram, the one with the metal drummer playing to it.
Oh,
You
yes.
are
yes,
good
yes.
or whatever it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
And I was just like, oh, it's that guy. It's sick.
Yo, like, first of all, let me say this. Like, this culture and the culture I came from is like totally different.
Oh yeah, I can
Like,
imagine.
not even close. I was telling some of the dudes at the Forge yesterday when we went to Culver's, I was like, if I wasn't a Christian, I would not hang out with none of you. Like,
What does that mean?
I was just being honest, because, like, you got to think, like, I'm not from the North. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
Like,
yeah.
I'm from the Midwest, Kansas City, Missouri. Like, I didn't grow up in the burbs. I'm from the hood. You know, like, nothing, we don't have anything in common.
Right.
Like, I don't want to go hunting. You know, like,
I don't wanna go hunting either,
No
but-
knock to, you know, those dudes who do that. But, like, that's just not my thing. You
Right.
know?
Yeah.
So I'm like, I was just thinking, like, I just wouldn't want to hang with if I wasn't a believer. You know what I'm saying?
No, that makes sense. But
So-
because you are a believer, you have that common ground where you can.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing about, like, everything that God has shown me since moving out here is, like, you know, there is other people you can relate to that hasn't grown up like you. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, back to the music thing. Yeah, so, like, I grew up, my dad is, like, the biggest Fred Hammond fan.
Okay.
Like, the biggest Fred Hammond fan. So obviously, like, him playing that,
Forgive me. Is Fred Hemming? Is he gospel?
he's a
or-
gospel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's our modern day psalmist, and I'm not joking. Like, you can put any worship band, Elevation. You can put Hillsong, Maverick. You can put anybody. He would destroy them, and I'm not joking. Like I will
Like,
stand on that hill.
Lyrically, musically, like
Musically, like bro, he wrote. I'm not even gonna go on the tangent, but
no, go on the tangent. That's what this podcast is.
One of my favorite songs by him is called "No Weapon," and it's based off Isaiah. What is that?
Did you send me this guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I actually listened to part of this song then.
I think it's what's the verse where it says no weapon formed against me
shall
prosper. It's in Isaiah. I forget, but anyway, like yo, that song is ridiculous. Like, and it's just like he's so like lyrically rich in his music. And so growing up, like my dad would play like him and like John P. Key, Israel, Donnie McClurkin. These are probably people you've never heard of. Like, and then it was that, and then it was rap.
Which rappers?
So like Lecrae.
Okay.
Like
so Christian rap.
Yeah, Christian rap.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, like I was the hugest Fred Hammond fan growing up, and then Israel came in when he has this song called "Who Is Like the Lord," and I was in the kids choir, and we used to sing that song like all the time, and so like obviously I gravitated towards him, but like Israel was like I would say Israel was like the first gospel artist to merge like CCM and gospel.
That's
because there's a bunch of songs people don't even realize that he wrote for like huge CCM artists, like that song "Echo" by Elevation.
okay.
He wrote that song. So it's like he was the one who started, like, in terms for me, how his voice is really high, but it's just so good.
Yeah.
Like Fred was more of like the musical, lyrical guy. He was a great singer. He's a great singer as well, or was. He's old now, but Israel was like the good arranger, how to like put songs together.
Yeah.
That was what I grew up on.
Were you into, because I asked you for your top 3, and 2 of them were gospel, and then the third one was Elevation. Did you listen to Elevation before they did that collab with Maverick City?
I didn't listen to Elevation till I moved out here.
Okay, and that was like within the last 2 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So any CCM, the only CCM I knew was probably Mercy Me.
Okay.
Because my dad loved the I Can Only Imagine song.
I feel like we all have.
Right.
It's a great song. It's just I grew up in like going to my parents were in Campus Crusade for Christ, which is Crew now. And so I remember some of my earliest memories was like music like that, and I was sitting in like the back as a toddler sort of thing. So there's deep roots with that. But
yeah, so I didn't know any CCM. And then I knew the Newsboys. I know the
like the old Newsboys or the new Newsboys? Are the new Newsboys still together?
Yeah.
They are,
I think
okay.
they are. Yeah.
I don't know. Do you know Michael Tate?
Yeah, he was
Right. I think they're still together.
I know him like
You
personally.
know Michael Tate?
I have his number.
Are you
Like,
serious?
I'm so serious.
You should call it.
Really? He might not answer.
No, I don't know what we would say if he did answer, to be perfectly honest. That's kind of crazy though.
My dad, so his sister, do you know like the Gaylors? They're this big like Southern.
Oh, did you say Gaither?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like Bill Gaither.
Yeah, they're like
They're like Alabama.
it's not
gospel.
my vibe of music. But
It's not my.
What is your vibe, Elijah? Because I was listening through yours too. Because like Red, I knew Red.
Yeah.
Growing up, that was like your high school. You said, which doesn't surprise me. I feel like a lot of us were into like the angsty, like soft metal sort of stuff in high school, and then who are the other guys you sent me? Because I did listen to them too.
Who did I send? I sent Hans Zimmer.
And Citizens. Okay, yeah.
And like I like listen to a lot of stuff.
Yeah, me too.
A lot of like like what I listen to now that like I would say is mainly my vibe is more like alternative. Yeah, mainly like alternative.
Who's okay? When you go listen to Hans Zimmer, what's your go-to track? I'm sorry, I feel like we made a really hard shift out of gospel,
no,
but
that's
we started
good.
touching on this, and this is one of my
like
Hans Zimmer's my favorite.
I'm like the Batman series movies are great. Like Inception, like just any good movie that's like out there, Hans Zimmer's probably looking for it. Like
His Interstellar stuff
was pretty so far.
I didn't like fully appreciate that soundtrack until I came across a video on YouTube, and it's this acoustic guitar player, and he's got one of those 12-string guitars, and he plays like the main song from Interstellar, and it just like helped me see it in like a whole different light. It's incredible. My cousin actually is first trumpet in the Utah Symphony, and he's played for Hans Zimmer before.
Oh, that is amazing.
When I found out that, I like totally geeked out and was like texting him like, "That's crazy." But are you into soundtracks at all, Kenton? You can say no. Most people aren't.
Well, here's the
It's kind of niche.
Here's the thing. The only soundtrack I've ever enjoyed was the first Black Panther soundtrack by Kendrick Lamar.
Yep.
Yo,
Which
that
doesn't.
joint was fire,
It's like a soundtrack,
but it's not a soundtrack.
but it's not like
Right.
a score.
Right.
Right? Yeah.
Which, honestly, okay. Did you guys see the first or the new Black Panther?
No,
No.
I haven't seen
Okay.
it.
Okay. We can skip past that then. I was gonna ask that anyways.
I've heard mixed reviews
Yeah.
about it.
I want to see it again because I'm a little mixed on it myself. But I've heard a lot of the other people have fully like it. So, but we'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, so back to Red in your high school years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, you know, so I listened to a lot of Screamo, just like all like different variants of stuff. Like my first big artist that I was obsessed with was Toby Mac. So it's a wide.
I don't completely understand how that translates to screamo because I was really into Toby Mac too.
Well,
but
it's just like I was all over the place.
Yeah.
You know, with just all these different bands and what sound. But I think one reason why I still enjoy going back to Red is because like they use like that kind of orchestra sound like a little bit in there.
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
I always like to go back to like that orchestra sound. It just like sounds so like good and like epic, like violins and
yeah,
harps and just like it just I feel like it builds
so it's
to a good song.
it's a different vibe. But because you said that, have you listened to NF?
Yeah.
Yeah, because Tommy Prophet, his producer, definitely leans heavy into like the orchestral
Yeah.
sort of arrangements.
And I like NF stuff as well. I don't listen to him as frequently, but like
He's a very specific vibe.
yeah.
He was my moody high school years, and now I'm just kind of like I'm not really depressed enough to listen to this right now, but
Yeah.
but it is very good. It is very good.
Depressed enough.
See, that's the thing. Wait,
I feel you.
do you get depressed, Kenton? If so, what kind of music
Bro.
do you listen to? You seem pretty happy most of the time, so I don't even know if you listen to moody music. But
Man, he can tell you. He see me at my low.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you think I listen? I don't really listen to music, I would say. Do you think?
I mean, are you still listening to the same like 5 songs that you did when you would wake up every single morning?
No.
Okay. It was like the five songs. They were always the same that he would play on rotation, like when he would get up in the morning and shower and sing to. So like, I don't know if you have a specific.
I don't think
I think you like listen to songs, but like, there's not like
I would say
pressed list.
yeah. So like, if I'm in a like really low valley, let me say this year, if I am, I'll listen to like the same worship song for like 3 weeks
I feel you on that.
Yeah.
in a
actually.
row.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I have made a transition where like instead of listening to like the depressed music that like makes you sink deeper into it, there's like Son of Suffering, like very
Yeah.
it's very mainstream at this point, but
Yeah.
It hits like almost no other song does to me.
I would say when I was depressed before, I would listen to this J. Cole album called from what is it? It's called like Before Your Eyes or something like that. Hold on, I got it right here.
You're on Apple Music.
I am.
Do you use Apple Music or Spotify?
Spotify.
Facts. Yep. Same.
But now being married, you're on a budget, so Spotify Premium's not on that list.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
Wait,
know.
really?
Yeah. So
But you guys can like do like the
I know.
household bundle. It's only like $10 or $15.
I
You save
know.
money.
I know.
How much?
Working on one income.
How
here.
much is Spotify? You know they upping the Apple Music price in December.
Hop
I'm
over to
about to
Spotify.
switch.
Spotify is $10 a month, and it has been consistently for like.
I'm finna switch over, bro.
You should switch over.
But I will listen to his album called For Your Eyes Only.
J. Cole.
Yeah.
For Your Eyes, okay.
That was like, I would, no disrespect, but that's probably like his most depressed album. Cause like he's telling the story about his friend who like loses his life at the end of the album. But he, like J. Cole is telling his story to his daughter, you know? So like later down the road when she's older, like she can listen to this and be like, oh, this is what my dad was like, you know?
That's intense.
So,
That's heavy.
You know what I'm saying? Like, but there was a song on there where he would say, there's a song where he talks about like, I don't know if I'm gonna see tomorrow or something like that. And I would listen to that song like 10 times a day, bro.
Dang.
So, but now, like, man, I was very different 2 years ago, bro.
There's a huge shift that happens between like 18 and 22, I feel like. So it doesn't surprise me that even over the last year,
Well,
your music taste.
not even just that. Just like when you go through life, bro, like, bro, life is so like, oh my goodness. Like I couldn't even tell you like the things I've seen at 23. I'm 23. Now, you know, I didn't go through the Great Depression, no. Right? I didn't go through the Civil Rights Movement. I didn't go through the crack era. You know, like I didn't go through none of those things, but I have went through some things. You know, and I like when you go through those things, I think like it just makes you realize that if you try to do this life on your own, you like just can't. Like you really just can't. And so like I think the reason why now I listen to worship songs that are when I'm down. I listen to worship songs that are like really emphasized on like the resurrection or like just like the descriptions of like God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. Because like it's the thing of like you realize who you're serving in the works they've done. And it like for me it brings me up, you know? Like you don't want to stay in the place of just sadness, you know.
It doesn't feel like it should make sense, like because what you're saying I think is definitely true. Focusing on God and like the big picture, I don't know why, but it does pull you out of it. It doesn't like always sort of thing if you're dealing with something really heavy, but it can usually help and like bring context to it. But it's really interesting because I feel like my natural tendency is like if something is wrong or if I'm really sad, then I like focus inward and try to figure out how do I fix my emotions? How do I get to where I want to be? Which I feel like is where self-help can be maybe a little, it can get a little dangerous because it just puts you in the mindset of this is on me to fix. But like you said, we can't go through this on our own. And for some reason, like some of my biggest mentors have said, like, you know, read your Bible, focus on God, like worship him in the moments where you're really low. And it does. I don't want to say it works because that makes it sound like the whole goal is to not be sad. But
right.
It does affect your mood drastically and your heart.
For sure.
Posture.
Yeah, I think in our culture today, like people don't realize the effect of life struggles. Now, granted, like we do live in America, So if we become Christians or followers of Christ, we're not going to get excommunicated. Well, most of us are not going to get excommunicated by our families, like somebody in the Middle East.
Killed.
Right.
Yeah.
Or like it's not illegal for us to, become a
Yeah.
Christian. But I will say, like I said before, like we do go through things. And are they at the same capacity as other countries? No, like not even close. But I think there's a real testament of like really focusing on the Lord during the low. I think it's more easy for us to focus on God in the high, because we
100%.
can easily be like, oh man, look at what God has done, which is true. Like look at what he's done. But I think when you're in the low, it's like a lot of questions come to, at least for me, a lot of questions come to my mind of like, yo, what is going on? Like, am I doing right? Am I even, am I even a believer? Like, there's just a lot of things that come more with being in the low. And I think one of the greatest examples we have of focusing on God while we're in the low is with Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. Like, he was getting ready to die. And like twice he goes to God and like, if this cup can pass from me, like let it. But at the end of the day, your will be done, not mine. And it's like, for us, like we gotta have that same mindset of like, Lord, like, take this suffering away from me, but nevertheless, like your will be done over mine. And I think like with that, I think we can be a huge testament to others who are non-believers, because like, they don't have any hope. Like the hope they have is money, it's sex, it's job, career.
It's that next step.
Yeah, and it's like they're so discontent in what they're doing that they're always looking for the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
Where versus like us, like all we have to do is trust in the Lord and we'll be satisfied. We should be satisfied. Not saying we're always going to be satisfied, but we should be. And so me being a music guy, like, I try to focus heavily on just like the impact that Jesus done for us on the cross and things like that, because I think that's just a real testament to who he is and his love for us and stuff. But
yeah,
there's a whole backstory like with all of that.
I thought it was interesting that when you hit me up to be on the podcast, you said like, let's talk about something fruitful. I'm like, yeah, that sounds really good. And then you're just like, let's talk about trials and sin.
Bro, Carter,
Feel free to drive this too. Like if you want to bring up a question or like a topic, like or like something specific on trials and get our thoughts on it, like by all means.
Let me ask, what is the biggest trial you've went through?
I've went through
so far, and just in 2022.
Oh, 2022.
In 2022.
Yeah, because there's a lot of trials before 2022, but the year's coming to a close. This is the typical new year, new me coming type of thing. But like this year, like what has been the biggest trial for you guys?
For me, I like, currently I'm working at Lighthouse Autism Center. So I work with autistic kids. That's not the career that I would like to be in. Like I'd love to be full-time worship lead. And that's not where I am right now. And so I would say earlier in the year, like I was really like wrestling with that. I've wrestled with that all throughout the year, but it's like coming more to terms with like, I have an idea of like where I should be and where I need to be. And I'm letting go of that because I know God in his infinite wisdom is working out his plan and will bring that about. And this is just a time of me growing and not having that role.
Yeah.
And growing to be prepared for that role. Because I truly believe that the Lord will work it out that I am in that position. Because I know He knows the desires of my heart and the desire to lead others in worship. So
I think that's a really good mindset to have, because I think a lot of people get caught up in like that they're not where they want to be, but they don't take time to actually like be present in where they are.
right,
And I mean, truth be told, like there's been many times in my life where I've been like, I'm not happy with where I am. I want to be somewhere else. And now I'm kind of like, I'm in places now that I thought I would never be in like 3 years ago, because 3 years ago I was just very uncontent. I'm like, I'm never going to get out of this stage. But you sounds like you have a really healthy mindset.
well, it's been a recent switch, more recently. Like I would say before, I was like, maybe even like 2 months ago, it was that mindset of like, I'm not happy where I am.
Yeah.
I'm impatient. I'm really like wrestling with the Lord, kind of like Jacob and the Lord, just wrestling with like His plan. But now it's more like I'm coming to terms with like, in letting go of my plans and my ideas, like I'm letting the Lord's plan fill my life and letting that become the focus, because I know He's going to do even better things than I could imagine.
Yeah.
In my own eyes of what that would be. So like, I would say like I'm on the upswing of it. And, not every day is like that victory of being on the upswing of it, but I would say, yeah, I'm coming out of it and trying to learn and grow in that. So
That's huge. I think I don't think I've really had, I don't think trial is the right word for what I've been going through this year. I think it's just been a huge growth year. Like I've been in a relationship now for like 4 months, and there's just like, I've had past relationships too, but this one has been by and large, the like I think the most healthy one. So there's just like stuff coming out in me that's just like that I've dealt with my entire life, like mindsets and just the way I think about things and how I've let my emotions control me and all this stuff. And it's all just kind of coming out in ways that I can actually deal with. And like God is growing me hugely through that. And then also on top of it, like I'm getting a new job now. I'm in that process of switching over, and that's a huge unknown, because I love the job I've had, but I've had it for like 4.5 years, and I've been extremely comfortable there over the last couple of years. So it's this huge, I feel like I'm very out of my, I'm about to be more out of my element, but I'm very out of my element in general right now.
but that's an awesome place to be in. Like,
Yeah, 100%.
the security blanket of what
Yeah.
and that just makes you like have to trust in the Lord more.
Yep. Absolutely. And I'm super happy to be in the place I am right now. It's just like, it's hard at times.
Yeah.
But
sure.
I'd rather be in a hard place and moving forward than kind of complacent, sitting in one spot.
Hey, that's crazy. Dang, you think I should share this?
Go for it.
You think so?
Just be authentic,
Yeah.
dude. Lay it out
All
there.
right. So, man, this year for me has been a bunch of highs, but really lows. So I would say the biggest trial this year is, so I was an intern at Gospel City.
Yeah.
I was like a worship intern. And sorry. I made some really poor decisions. I was not a man of character or integrity or practicing godliness. And because of that, I lost that internship there. And the whole thing about this is that I really wrestled with God in the sense of since becoming a Christian, I've always struggled with this same sin. Like, I know we're not supposed to categorize sin, but if this was like, if we could, and this was like your number one, this was my number one, like out of all the other ones, like, you know, to me at least. But you know, it was one of those things where I'm like, if only you had taken this away from me, I wouldn't have struggled with this, or I wouldn't have, you know, put myself in this position, or I wouldn't have satisfied my flesh or whatever. And what I was doing, it like when I'm asking those questions, like it was so selfish of me, so prideful of me to be like first of all, like who am I to go to God and be like, oh, only if you did this? Like what? Like he's already done enough. You know what I'm saying? But like I really wrestled with some thoughts. Like I thought about leaving Gospel City. I thought about moving back home. Like I thought about just not being a Christian. Like period. Because like the thought came to me of like, if I'm going to lose things that I really love because of decisions that I make, why am I about to live this life, this Christian life? And I think a lot of young people ask themselves that.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes as a church we don't care for those who think that way. Not because they don't care, but because when somebody says that, like most people aren't bold enough to say that, or aren't bold enough to think that. You know what I'm saying? So for me, I feel like I legit had a choice. Like I legit was like, all right, like either I can go to them and be like, hey, I'm gonna just leave this church. I've heard people in the body. I'm gonna just go to another church. I could have told my job like, yo, like I'm gonna just move back to Kansas City, you know, or I could have just been like, I'm just not about to be a Christian anymore, and I'm just about to do whatever I want. And so I wrestled with that for a long time. But the thing that ultimately helped me come to my decision of, you know, staying on the path was I was driving to meet up with an elder. And this is so the way it happened is like Gospel City, they found out something. They talked to me. That next Wednesday, I get released, right? And I'm meeting up with this elder the same day. And so as I'm driving, the verse of the day pops up.
Bro, that verse of the day, let me tell you.
Bro, let me...
Coming in clutch.
The verse of the day pops up, and let me pull it up so I won't misquote. But it was Hebrews 12, verses 2, I want to say. And is it Hebrews 12? Sorry.
You're good.
Come on.
So are you gonna mark it? You gotta highlight that.
I know. Oh, here it is. Hebrews 12:11. It says, "For the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later it yields to the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it." I was like, "Oh my goodness gracious! Are you kidding me? Like, are you kidding me?"
That dude, the timing of the verse of the day is insane sometimes.
Bro, it's crazy. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna stay on this course. I'm gonna stay faithful. I'm gonna actually get help for what I'm struggling with. And I'm telling you, bro, like ever since, like it's been really cool to see others encouraged.
Yeah.
And almost like push them to stay in the faith, you know, of like, you know, because I felt like I lost everything.
How long had you been a Christian up till this point?
I've only been a Christian for 2 years.
Yeah, so it's pretty fresh. This was like your first probably big. Am I fair to say that this is your first like bigger trial?
Oh,
since you've
for
been a
sure.
Christian? Yeah,
For sure.
And it's very connected to your faith? Because like you said, it had to do with like a sin that you struggle with.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was the first time where I felt like God like laid everything out for me and then kind of like took it away because of my own sin. But like, and this was the first time I actually thought about, not being a Christian.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. But just to see like the fruit of that, of like people being encouraged, of me telling them like, yeah, man, like I'm going through this, but I'm still sticking to the word. I'm still sticking to, because I get the questions of like, oh, why haven't you led worship? Why haven't you?
Yeah.
All that.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, this is why. And it's not, they don't, people, when I tell them, they aren't like, oh man, come on, man, you got to do better. They're just like, man, like, we're thankful for you being, vulnerable, authentic and still sticking to the faith. Because, I mean, I guess, like, I don't know about y'all, but, like, growing up, I didn't really see a lot of, like, church fallouts. Mm-hmm. Or I didn't know people who, like, went to church, something happened, and they left.
Yeah.
So, like, and I guess they have. So
it's kind of a big thing.
Yeah. Like,
oh yeah.
Again, like it's a cultural thing, I think, because like I don't know, I just didn't see a lot of that. Like I didn't hear a lot of like, oh, this person was doing this and they, or whatever. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think like it's like this year, that for me was the biggest thing, and I think like through it all, I can honestly say it needed to happen. One, because I needed to work on my character. Like one, like becoming a biblical man, a man after God's own heart. But two, I think the Lord again uses things to draw people to Him. And I think, it always reminds me of Romans 8:28, talking about all things work together for those, or all things work together for good for those who love God. Mm-hmm. And it just reminds me, like, anything that happens in our life, like, God can use. Like, it doesn't matter.
And He will use it.
Right, yeah, He will use it,
Kind of like even with Elijah, I wouldn't go so far as to say that going to Brazil was a sin, but like, he
like,
used it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Hugely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's funny. Well, speaking of timing of the verse of the day, I think it was yesterday. The verse of the day was in James 1. Have you read through James 1?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because that's all about, like, count it all joy, brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds. And so I was reading through that today and taking notes on it and stuff. I'm just like, Kenton wants to talk about trials, and this is a really good passage to talk about it. But the big thing that hit me from that was, like, I feel like this is just kind of like a small group right now. Is what it feels like. But
I like it.
Yeah, me too. He was talking it's all about that let me find it. For you know that testing of your faith produces steadfastness, or in some versions it says, for you know that trials produce steadfastness, and let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. So it's kind of like, in the NIV, it says mature and something else, like becoming mature through it. And that's like, it's just part of it. And it gives you freedom to take risks or to do things without being completely sure about them. And I want to be careful when I say that too, because it doesn't mean like sin, so that he's like, oh, it doesn't matter. It's all going to work out. Because like in your situation, it was a painful process. Mm-hmm. But like, if it happens and you have the right heart attitude about it, and you like confess and repent sort of thing, then it's gonna build your endurance. It's gonna build that steadfastness and then mature you.
Yeah, I think one thing we're failing in the church right now is allowing people to see the fruit behind suffering. I think I think sometimes we present Christianity so depressing, bro. Like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like sometimes when I hear other people, and again, no offense to nobody, okay? I'm a little blunt, so I'm sorry. But, you know, like when I hear people be like, oh, yeah, I'm going through a hard time. Like, our dog is sick. It's like, are you kidding? Like you know, like no disrespect, all right? But we're talking about an animal. Like I get it. Dogs are a man's best friend. You know what I'm saying? But it's just like there's things that real people are dealing with. I mean, yes, you're dealing with that.
Yeah.
But there's like things where families are being affected by.
Yeah.
Like actually. You know, like you can get another dog.
Yeah.
Like, not to be rude or nothing like that, but it's like when we present the gospel in a way where it's just so depressing, like it's like who wants to come to that? Like who wants to come to that?
Well, here's,
You know?
I'm gonna spin on that a little bit. I think first of all, to your first point about like, you know, if you're, you know, people are like really sad or like they're feeling really like they're being tested or like they're in a trial when like their dog is sick or something. I think that just speaks partially to the American culture and like how comfortable we are. And I think that God still works through it because it's kind of like people in other countries who are like have their life on the line for being a Christian. They have their struggles are a lot more life and death. Whereas in America, we're far more comfortable. And I just think our emotional like tolerance level, kind of like a pain tolerance is just like, we're way lower. So like our emotional pain tolerance is just so low in comparison. Like death is not a normal part of American culture. In other countries, people die all the time and it's just part of it. But I think, you know, I mean, God will work in our level of disturbance of our dog being sick is like the same as somebody else's friend dying in another country sort of thing. So like I think the disturbance God works in similarly because it's about how we're reacting to it. I think that allows him to work powerfully. I don't know if that's what I meant to say, but use discretion to interpret what I just said.
Yeah.
But and then also when you're saying like the gospel is being presented in a depressing way, I think it's generally presented in like the fashion of like I want to save you from going to hell. And that's like about as doom and gloom as you can get. And it says nothing about the life that follows. And it's kind of like, I think it should be presented more in the sense of, I want you to experience what I'm experiencing, which is a relationship with Jesus, which is like, it's powerful. It gives you joy. It gives you, it gives you every good thing. It says in James 1, you know, every good thing comes from God. And it's kind of like, why would you want to live your life outside of that? I agree. All that to say is I think that the gospel is probably being presented much more doom and gloom.
I think to bounce off that as well, I think there's still a way where you can, because the Bible's full of emotion where God gifted us feeling and the Psalm is full of feeling. But the difference in like Psalms and throughout the whole of Scripture is that like there's suffering, but it always points to a hope. And that's the big difference. Like in so many of the Psalms and David's Psalms, like he starts out like super depressing. And by the end of it, he shakes himself out of it and like returns to the hope in the Lord. So like there can be trial. And I think God has given us that feeling and understands that there will be suffering and that we can talk about that and we can tell that to others, but it should always point to the hope in Christ that there's one day, you know, that he'll come. And so there is something to look forward to, even though it is hard right now. And that shows like authenticity, like instead of the repent or you're going to hell, like
right.
That's not authentic to me. That's just, demeaning and hopeless when the gospel should be hopeful.
Yeah, I think it's, and the thing about like those people who present the gospel of like repent or you're gonna go to hell, like that's true. Like That's true, you know. But I think like one of the gifts we have from God is compassion, and I always think about the story where the Pharisees bring that lady who was caught in adultery, and they was like, we just caught her in adultery. Jesus, what you gonna do? And Jesus start writing in the sand, being weird or whatever.
By the way, we never find out what he wrote in the sand.
I know. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, I'm gonna get back to it.
Okay.
But so, but he says to them, if you are sinless, right, if you haven't committed a sin, I want you to throw the stone. And obviously, none of them can do it, and like the point of that, I feel like, is that Jesus turns to the lady and says, "Get up, but sin no more." Mm-hmm. So like he gives her hope of like, you don't have to keep doing this. Like you don't have to. And I think that's what the gospel is. It's like, obviously the gospel is here to make us realize we can't live this life without a savior, but we don't have to continue in that. Right, we can literally turn away and live a fruitful life, live a humble life, live a loving life with relationships to Jesus. And so, but yeah, I think our culture is just so like soft, bro. Like, and it's like it's hard because it's like, I think a lot of times we don't realize the bigger picture. So, for example, like when I was growing up, like a political thing just wasn't a thing for us. Mm-hmm. Like in my household, I never thought of my family being conservative or left or right. Like it was just, we just didn't talk about it, right? But then like moving out here, I see it everywhere. Like I see the Trump flags, I see the Biden flags, and even talking to some of my friends, like, they're like, oh, yeah, I grew up in a very conservative family. I have no idea what that means. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying those things aren't important, but I think we allow those things to block us, or not block us.
We've kind of let it become our identity.
Right.
To a degree.
And it hinders us from, like, again, seeking a bigger picture, which is preaching the gospel.
Yeah. Well, I feel like it puts us and everybody else into boxes, which makes it, I don't know. I think people are way too dynamic to be put in that. And I think I don't know. I'm not very knowledgeable in that subject, but I do agree that I think we get hung up in the boxes we make for ourselves. And because our boxes are different than other people's boxes, then it feels like we should be at odds with them when we really don't have to be. Yeah. But yeah.
There's like an analogy that I heard like of a dog and an owner who were just on a walk and they were going to the top of the hill. And you would think that of the two, like the dog would get up to the top of the hill first, and not be as tired. But when they got to the top of the hill, the dog was more tired. Why? Because it stopped at every little anthill and was sniffing every little thing on the way up and running all over. And comparatively, like, we're the dog, because we're making all these little things the big thing when the focal point is the cross. And
okay,
hey,
come on.
That's not my saying. So, but yeah, it's all rises and falls on the cross and the resurrection, and that alone. And so, and I think it's just a recentering of that. For every single one of us, it's like that whole sanctification process is like, it's tough. So,
bro, so tough.
Let me. I'm gonna spin this in a little bit of a different direction. You said it all rises and falls on the cross and the resurrection. This is more real world than it is theological. But say somebody, because I don't know if you guys have seen like The Case for Christ and stuff like that.
Bro, fire.
So people are.
Go see that movie, y'all. I got a PureFlix account. I got you. That joint was fire, yo. I saw that.
That's the only time I've heard anybody ever say, let me give you my PureFlix login.
Bro, I saw the ad for it on YouTube. I was like, I'm about to subscribe.
It was a pretty decent movie.
That was a great movie.
It's pretty surface level. So I have a really good friend who's an apologist. So apologetics. Sorry, apologetics is all about the evidence for Christianity. So that's his profession, where he is very into that and philosophy and whatever. But like, if somebody walked up to you, and because if you can disprove the resurrection of Christ, then you can pretty much, like, Christianity falls apart.
Yeah.
And it's pretty well agreed upon by even secular and even atheists that Jesus was a real person.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not really up for debate. But what is up for debate is that, did he rise from the dead? Because that is the proof right there that he's the Son of God, which then makes his death meaningful.
Right.
So, I mean, if you're talking to somebody and they're like, hey, I don't think Jesus rose from the dead, or they just ask, how do you know that he actually rose from the dead? What would you say?
Well, one, like, we can't not use the Bible. So if you think about the Gospels, right? Like, the Gospel describes that there were, I want to say, was it over 500?
500 witnesses, or
There were like
something
500
that.
witnesses,
Plus the disciples.
right? That saw Jesus, or claimed to see Jesus after after his death.
And that's in the Bible?
Yeah.
It says, yeah.
And so there's that, right? There is the evidence of the deaths of the disciples, that they died because they were not going to stop preaching the gospel. Mm-hmm. So if Jesus didn't rise from the dead, right, why would they still talk about it? But so willing enough that they died for it.
Right. And they weren't making money off of it, and they weren't.
Right. They wasn't doing ministry.
They didn't become popular.
Right. They were like...
they weren't raising support.
Right. Like, they were genuinely wanting other people to know about this good news.
Yeah.
And so, and then the third thing I would say is, like, I think one of the things I try to do is help whoever asks me about that, like, help them understand the position of, like, if this was not real and I died, then I have nothing to lose, right? Like, I'll just die living a life devoted to a guy that I thought was real. But if it is, I'm going to be forever with the guy who I knew was real by faith. And that person, I'd rather be with him than eternally separated. So I mean, I don't know if that's a right answer or a wrong answer, but
no, those are good answers.
What you think?
I think.
I mean, like you said it, the disciples, they died for the gospel. And all of them said the same thing. There was like no disparity between like who Jesus was and like how he rose from the dead, and just all those details. They took that to the grave. So I think that speaks volumes. Mm-hmm. Like, people who are insane, would take that to the grave, but 12 people who take that to the grave and say the same thing, like, they all had the same account. And that and how it just continues to grow from there. It's like, there was like, in history, there was a guy who, I mean, you see God's like faithfulness throughout all of history and his faithfulness. And this doesn't necessarily answer the question of like his resurrection, but like the whole idea of, is God real? There was this philosopher or someone like that, and he said to a king how he knew God was real. 2 words: the Jews. And the reason he said that was because if you look at the Jewish history, they should have been wiped out a long time ago.
Yeah.
Like, just in every single way. But the faithfulness of God to the Jewish people, that they are still present in history, like, that's just his hand over it all. there's a lot of those things like that. And so like just seeing his faithfulness, like doesn't matter if you have the Bible or not, you can see his creation around. And like, so yeah, that doesn't really answer your question on actually, but yeah, like the disparity, the no disparity between the disciples and how they each went to the grave faithfully to that. J.D. Greer is a pastor. I think he's the president of the Southern Baptist Convention right now. But he talks a lot about those points, and he like gives multiple points of like why the proof is in the pudding. And I can't call them all up, but like it's the stuff that we've already touched on. But even like with that question as well, like I think often one of the things is like with the generation is we're so argumentative. And that even goes with believers. And rarely are you going to argue someone into the faith.
Yeah.
It's more shown. And there was, I would say, a mentor to me when I was at Word of Life. His name was T.C. Bars, super wise man. And he said that when people ask questions, ask them another question, right? Try to get to the core of why they're asking that. Like, and what you'll find is more often than not, there's like a deep hurt of like, and that's why they're questioning God.
Yep.
And it's not so much that like, well, how do you know it's true? It's because way down when like their grandmother died and they were hurt because they didn't see the justice in that. And so
It's about your perspective of who God is.
right.
And the really interesting thing about that, I'm gonna hop on this real quick if that's okay.
Oh yeah.
Because a lot of the things that I've been dealing with, again, like I've said, like over the last year, I've like my mindset and lies I've believed and everything have like come to the forefront, like a bunch of personal issues, and I'm understanding why they're there. And as I learn about it, it's a lot of the things that people deal with comes from their perspective of who God is and who they believe that God actually is. And it's because like, I mean, I've been a Christian like my whole life, but I've had so many, I haven't had that many bad things happen to me, but I've had enough pain happen in my life where I've come to kind of believe about God that he doesn't want, like he's not going to give me good things. Like there's some things that come through, but I don't focus on those. I think about, like when I am given a gift, which again, James 1, which is actually why I went in and read through it today, because the verse of the day was talking about how every good thing comes from God and he gives us good gifts. And I've prayed recently within the past few days that he would show me like why I'm having issues receiving gifts and good things he's giving me. And I feel like it's because I've gone through pain and I feel like it's inevitable that these good things end or that they're taken away. And then I'm like in the gutter about it. And I've realized that over the years, that mindset has deeply ingrained itself in me, where now I'm like, God is renewing my mind in that area and teaching me that he is good. And that I think is something that a lot of people struggle with. And like you said, like some people off the bat, they will not accept Christ because they think that if there's a God, he's not good because all this bad stuff happens. But I think on the flip side, even for Christians, they believe in God. They may even fully believe that Jesus died for their sins and they might be saved, but they deep down do not have as fruitful a relationship with Jesus as they could because they believe that he's actually not good. And I think I think that's something that a lot of people deal with. Because I think if you truly believe that Jesus was as good as he actually is, you'd be a whole lot more joyful, far less argumentative. All those symptoms come back to a root issue, I think.
Yeah, that's wow. I've never heard somebody say it like that. I would agree. Yeah, I think it just speaks to the selfishness of us of thinking like thinking that how can God? I've always like wondered this question to myself, and maybe y'all could help me out, but I've always wondered like, how can God be good to me if every day I sin? like the questions I think a lot of people are afraid to ask are questions like, how can God really be good? Like, why would he love me? Like, he came 2,000 years ago. Like, I was born 23 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, why would he love me? If I'm going to sin every day, how is it that the power of the gospel can still change my life? And I think like those are real questions like I've wrestled with. I mean, I know some other people have wrestled with those questions as well. And again, like I think going back to my point earlier, I think sometimes like we don't allow the space for that. And I think when we do, it's like if you ask a question like that, people automatically be like, "Oh, we don't know if he's a Christian for real because he's thinking these things." And it's like, no, like I just genuinely want to know, like, what I'm saying? Like I think about Thomas in the Bible, the disciple. I mean, they called him Doubting Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, Jesus still went to him and was like, yo, like, look at me. Look at me. Like he gave him this space to doubt. He gave him this space to have questions, and almost have some unbelief. And it was until Thomas realized, like, oh, yeah, this dude, it really is the Son of God. Then that's when, his life changed, I think. I don't know. What do y'all think?
Well, I mean, your original statement of like, how can God love me, or how can he be good to me if I'm sinning every day?
Mm-hmm.
I think that comes back to partially your interpretation of who you believe God is, but more so what you believe love is. Like what you actually believe love is. And if you are actually believing that God is or has unconditional love. Because unconditional love, again, this is something I've learned over the last few months, is that it loves you regardless of what happens, regardless of what you've done, who you think you are, what you believe. And I think that does tie back to it because the Bible says God is love, and it tells us what love is. Love is patient, love is kind, and then there's keeps no record of wrongs, all that sort of thing. So, I mean, to answer your question, like God is love, so he is patient, he keeps no record of wrongs. So it's not like they stack up and they're like, okay, you know what, I'm done. Because that's our interpretation, that's our experience of love on earth from human beings, because we've never experienced true unconditional love. I think even people who have known people who are truly loving people, and like they can't think of one bad thing that person has done. I think even in those situations, it's still not even an accurate representation of unconditional love. And I don't know that it's possible. I don't think it's possible for us to experience that outside of God and outside of Jesus.
Yeah. I mean, you nailed it. Like God is love. And so like for people who are non-believers and are in a marriage, like, I don't think, like you said, I don't think they experience that because they haven't met the person who is love, who love originated from. And it only comes from God. And once we have God, like that flows from us as we are his outlet of love to others. And so I'm reminded of like that verse, God's mercies are new every morning when to what you said of sinning every single day. Like your mercies are new every morning, Lord, because like every day it's like a shower that just continually showers me. And like, was your question more like, how can he love me if I continue to sin every single day? Or like,
yeah, or like, yeah. Cause like, I know people, like even I have struggled with this of like, man, like I've been in seasons where I've just been in rampant sin.
yeah.
And it's like, when you read the Bible, it still says, 1 John 1:9, if we confess our sins, he's faithful and just to forgive us. And it's like, how? It's just like, how?
Yeah.
Like, I think those are like real questions some people wrestle with, and I'm not saying like, I don't think those are bad questions, like, because I think they're just questions.
No, I think they're
You know what
great
I'm saying?
questions. I think questions that challenge the faith heavily are great questions.
And they also grow you a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they force you to learn.
Right.
And I think that, again, I think it boils down to like, it's hard for us to comprehend something that we've never experienced. And some people haven't even experienced love at all, let alone unconditional love.
Yeah.
So I think honestly, that's a lot of what it boils down to. But
That's good.
I think as well, like me being married now, like I've mentioned this before to you, KJ, like, just as I've been married, showing love to my wife, it's opened up my eyes to that kind of love that Christ, God shows to us. In that way of like, if my wife wrongs me, it's like, that's not going to remove my love from her. It's just like, it's a choice. And no matter what she says, no matter what she does, like, my love will always be there. I've made it a choice that will hold. And I'm not going to go back on that.
and that love does not come from yourself.
Right.
And I think that's the big difference, because I think you can probably make it a while, like a secular marriage where God is not in it. I think you could make it a while, just be like, I'm going to choose to forgive you. I'm going to choose this. But when you have the context and you have the belief that the love that is in me, it doesn't come from me. It comes from the creator of the universe,
Right.
who is unending love. Then it gives you so much more strength and ability.
And I think as well, like, when you realize that God has loved you so much for what you've done, you can love that person so much for what they have done.
Yep.
And it's just like, yeah, being married, like, has taught me a lot about, like, love of the Lord. And it's opened up passages that I read before about love, and I was like, yeah, like, I understand that in familial sense and, like, different manners. But then once I started dating and, like, got engaged and got married, it's like, whoa, like, this is how the Lord loves me. Like, and almost in a way, like, it helps me to pursue and grow in my relationship with my wife now. It's just that way of looking at it. So
What's hard about that, and something that comes up in people, is when you do start to experience that kind of love and your eyes get open to it for the first time, some people back away from it because they don't think they're worthy of it. And that's a whole nother level that you have to grow through.
right.
And God wants you to grow in that. He wants you to see that you are worthy, first of all, of his love,
Yeah.
and that he does love you. And then once you accept that, then you can start realizing it has heavily to do with shame, because shame tells you you're a bad person,
Right.
or that you're not good. And that's something that I've been dealing with too, where it's just like, I'm worthy of it, and I don't completely have my head wrapped around it yet, but having my foot in the door of that is already freeing.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, I think it just goes back to the idea of, like, hope, when you feel that shame, and then you read scripture about how God thinks about you.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, it's just that idea of, like, you don't have any control of, like, how God feels about you or what he thinks about you. You just have to rest in that. And that's an amazing thing. Like, to read, like, yeah, like, I'm not deserving of God's love or his affections for me at all. And yet I have them. And this is what he thinks about me. Even though I was this before, I am no longer this. Like, I take on the blood of Jesus Christ has covered me. And now I take on the attributes of Christ, and God sees Christ, not myself and my old ways. And that's just like, I don't have to do it. It's the biggest thing is, like, we don't have to do anything. It's all God who has acted for us. We merely have to rest and accept that. And like you said, that's the hardest part. Sometimes just saying, like, I don't understand it, but I'm it's okay not to understand it. Like,
And that's a hard spot to rest in. Again, James 1, I swear it's loaded with stuff. It's talking in the context of asking for wisdom, but let him ask in faith with no doubting, for the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea that is driven and tossed by the wind. For that person must not suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. He is double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. And that's just like the belief. The believing part is the hardest part. But if we can rest in that, then that is like, that's when we're able to see what God is doing, I think. And we're at least able to rest in it. But if you're sitting there, and again, for me, I'm a very internal person. I think I have I definitely have overthinking tendencies, but it's just kind of like,
same.
I'm sitting there, and I'm like, okay, yeah, but what if, like, it's like God's telling me to rest in an area. Okay, but what if this and what if that? And it's a lot of fear talking. But that doubt, it causes that double-mindedness, which makes you unstable, and it makes you unable to see when God actually, you haven't received it. You can't receive it when you're just afraid all the time. So you can't experience that peace.
I think that's why as well, like in Scripture, that's why he gives us community, because, I mean, we have the Word of God to shake us out of that mentality, but sometimes we're just so stubborn, and God likes to use his people to shake us out of our own foolishness and stupidity, and our narrow-sightedness. And so that's why community is just important as well, and why he's put that in there. Everything that for our life is in the Bible, like how to live it out, like,
Yeah.
Do you know what Bible stands for?
Huh.
It's basic instruction before leaving Earth.
Yeah.
I've heard it like that. How much time we got?
Okay, no, we've been going for almost 2 hours, so I'm ready to wrap it up. So unless you had something that you really wanted to hit.
Nah, we can wrap it up.
I do want to say real quick that, like, if I was listening to this podcast, I would be tempted to slip into the mindset of like, okay, these are things that I can do to like fix myself. Like if I believe and don't doubt, or if I fix my interpretation of love or who God is, then I'll be good. But like life is a journey. Our faith is a journey. Mm-hmm. Sanctification is a journey. So if you are like, in a position where you feel like you're not good enough at a bunch of areas, like give yourself some grace, experience the grace God has for you. And I mean, ask him to help you in those areas, but it's a journey and it's not up to you to fix yourself either.
Not at all.
It just all goes back to the gospel. Like we can do nothing. It's only through Christ.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Don't listen to this thinking we got all the answers, because your boy don't. Right? I really don't. But it really is just, I love how God allows us to go through life and really just allow us to experience certain things, to realize like certain things, So everything is not about the destination, it's about the journey.
Yeah. So, cool. Thank you guys for joining us. Be back with you with another bottle later.